The alarm, the cold coffee, the traffic, the sigh. You know this routine. It happens quietly, deep inside your mind, every single morning, before the sun even rises. You wake up, you put on the armor the world expects you to wear, and you do what you've always done. But every now and then, you look into the mirror, and you barely recognize the person looking back. The face carries the marks of time. The eyes carry something even heavier. And somewhere deep inside, a question quietly appears. Have the best years of my life already passed? Days became months, months became years, and that emptiness you've been carrying, that deep exhaustion in your soul, isn't laziness. It isn't weakness. It's the weight of spending decades doing everything you were supposed to do, while slowly forgetting what truly made you feel alive. You carried the weight of the world on your shoulders, and somewhere along the way, you left yourself behind. But what do we have to lose before we finally find the courage to begin again? This is the story of Arthur, a 50-year-old man who believed his life had already been written. He thought there was no room left for change, no space for new dreams. So he kept waking up each morning. He kept going to work. He kept doing what everyone expected of him. But inside, something had gone quiet. Arthur had not given up on life all at once. It happened slowly, in small choices, in postponed dreams, in all the times he told himself, maybe someday. What he did not know was that the life he had learned to tolerate was about to be shattered, because the greatest prison is not made of iron bars. Sometimes it looks exactly like the routine we have become afraid to leave. Arthur's life had become a long stretch of gray. He was a good man, a provider, someone who never missed work, never raised his voice, never let anyone down. But inside, there was a silence that never seemed to end. A desk, a computer, another contract, another ordinary day. Every afternoon at exactly 4:30, Arthur would glance at the clock on the office wall. He thought he was waiting for the workday to end, but in truth, he was simply watching his life slip away. Days became weeks, weeks became years. Outside, the seasons kept changing. Autumn leaves fell, winter came and went. Spring always returned. But inside Arthur, nothing ever changed. It was always the same quiet winter. Then, one rainy Sunday afternoon, while cleaning the attic, Arthur's hand touched an old wooden box covered in dust. He opened it. Inside was an old film camera. There were unfinished travel plans, folded maps, dreams he had once drawn with a younger heart. For a long moment, he simply stood there, holding the camera in his hands. Memories rushed back. He remembered the young man who dreamed of seeing the world through a lens, the young man who believed life was still waiting for him. Arthur quietly asked himself, what happened to that man? Is he still somewhere inside me, or is it too late to become him again? A heavy silence filled the room. Then, Arthur slowly placed the camera back into the box. He closed the lid. He convinced himself that ignoring the pain would make it disappear. But before leaving the attic, a single tear rolled down his face. He wiped it away before anyone could see. Some dreams don't die. They simply wait, buried beneath years of responsibility. Life has a way of interrupting the silence we learn to live with. For Arthur, that moment came on an ordinary Tuesday. The traffic, a light rain, the dashboard glowing in front of him. Then, it happened. A sharp pain spread across his chest. His breathing became shallow. The world around him grew strangely quiet. The colors blurred. His hands tightened around the steering wheel. He pulled the car over. Cold sweat covered his face. Then came the sound of sirens, bright hospital lights, the steady rhythm of a heart monitor. Lying in that hospital bed, Arthur wasn't thinking about work. He wasn't thinking about money or deadlines. He kept asking himself one question. Is this really how my story ends? Will I leave this world without ever truly living my own life? That night, something changed. Not in his body, but in his soul. For the first time in years, Arthur understood that life is never measured by how busy we are. It's measured by the moments we are truly awake. He survived. But the man who walked out of that hospital was no longer the same man who had walked in. Real change doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens the next morning, when life goes back to normal. In the weeks that followed, Arthur made a quiet decision. He would stop rushing through his days. He started walking a little slower. He actually tasted his morning coffee. He noticed the sunlight coming through the kitchen window. For the first time in years, he wasn't just existing, he was paying attention. Then one evening, he brought the old camera back from the attic. He placed it on the living room table. Not because he was ready, but because he no longer wanted to hide from the life he once dreamed about. The world around him didn't understand. His family thought he had changed. His co-workers whispered that he had lost his ambition. Even Arthur questioned himself. Am I being selfish? Is it too late to choose something for myself? The old fears returned, but this time, they didn't win. 8 months passed. Little by little, Arthur had begun to feel alive again. He was planning his very first photography trip, a dream he had postponed for more than 30 years. The tickets were already booked. Then one morning, he was called into the director's office. The thick carpet, the polished wooden desk, the contract waiting in front of him. His boss smiled. It was everything Arthur had worked for. A promotion, more money, more prestige, the recognition he had spent decades chasing. But there was a price. Longer hours, weekends at the office, canceled trips, the same life wrapped in a more expensive package. Arthur held the pen in his hand. For a long moment, he simply stared at it. Then he looked at the clock on the wall. The same clock he had spent years watching, while waiting for his life to begin. And suddenly, everything became clear. Arthur looked down at the contract one last time. Then, he slowly placed the pen back on the desk. He took a deep breath, looked his boss in the eyes, and quietly said, "No, I don't have any more time to waste. The room fell silent. For the first time in decades, Arthur wasn't choosing money. He wasn't choosing status. He wasn't choosing other people's expectations. He was choosing himself. As he walked out of that office, something extraordinary happened. The weight he had carried for so many years was finally gone. He wasn't walking away from a promotion. He was walking toward the life he should have been living all along. Because true freedom begins the moment you stop living the life everyone expects, and start living the life your own heart has been asking for. Arthur slowly disappeared into the distance, a backpack on his shoulders, a camera around his neck, and a quiet smile from someone who finally belonged to himself. And now, it is just you and me. I did not tell you Arthur's story to talk about cameras, hospitals, or offices. I told you this story because of the time you feel you have lost, because of the mirror you may have been avoiding. You are not too late. The human soul does not have an expiration date. Starting over does not belong only to the young. It belongs to anyone who realizes that their heart is still beating, that their lungs are still filling with air, and that tomorrow is still a blank page. The pain of your past choices is real, and time does not come back. But understand this today. The most wasted time in your life is not the time that has already passed. It is the time you are still losing while mourning what is already gone. So let me ask you something. What have you been postponing because you believe you are too old, too tired, or too afraid to begin again? What part of you has been silent for too long? Do not try to change your entire life in the next 24 hours. Just stop abandoning yourself. Take one small step today. Pick up the book you forgot. Write the words you have been afraid to say. Have the conversation you keep postponing. Return to something that once made you feel alive. You do not have to move quickly. You do not have to have everything figured out. You simply have to begin without pressure, without guilt. Just live. If this story touched a part of you that is still afraid to start again, share it with someone who may also feel that it is too late. And if you are ready for the next step, watch the video appearing on your screen now. It is the story of a woman who stopped trying to please everyone and finally found her own voice. Your time is not over. Keep walking. I will see you on the other side.